Welcome once again to the DRH show. Today I'm joined by a PhD researcher in sports psychology, Preston Corbell. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Well, great to have you here, Preston. So let's kick this off with you telling us your background. I know you have an interesting background and also your trajectory in life and how you ended up doing what you're doing.
Okay, I'll try to put it in pieces, but I'm actually a retired stuntman, so Hollywood stuntman, and I've been doing that for 20 years. So I've been doing Hollywood stuntman. I started as a teenager, just doing some acting gigs, and got into stunt work and did over 100 projects like Cabin Fever, One Tree Hill, Vampire Diaries, and some cool Marvel and DC projects, and just a limitless amount of awesome stuff. Great career, and that kind of transitioned to doing sports psychology. And while everyone else was having fun on set, I was doing online learning and kind of getting my degree in that. So I feel like going into sports psychology, I can definitely bring something to athletes, professional athletes, and knowing that realm of how a professional athlete thinks and what they need to go through. I went through that for 20 years, plus the knowledge of psychology. So I think that'll be a great transition into that career.
Very interesting transition indeed, Preston. Now, since you mentioned about Hollywood, I can't help but ask you, so what are some of the notable projects you've been part of in your film career as a stuntman before?
So I was in a movie called Cabin Fever. I was in a couple Cabin Fever movies. My cornerstone project was One Tree Hill. I did One Tree Hill for multiple seasons. I was Chad Michael-Murray or Lucas Scott's double for multiple seasons, and that's really the cornerstone of really what got me going. And then I worked in Wilmington, North Carolina, in that studio, and got to do a lot of cool stuff. As you can see, my cat behind me, excuse me. But and then I went ahead and did some Vampire Diaries. I went ahead and I did DC and Marvel towards the end of my career, and then I did a lot of horror projects, which I loved. And then I love doing like Comic Cons and meeting people and meeting fans and stuff. So definitely a full career.
And those sounds like really fantastic projects that you've been involved with. But are there any memorable stunts that you've been part of? What exactly are you doing?
So memorable stunts. I mean, there's a few that stick out. I think I did practical stunts. So, if we're getting hit by a car, we're getting hit by a car. There wasn't a lot of wire work, and it was also early 2000s when I started, very early 2000s. So a lot of practical stunts. So, I mean, I probably got hit by a car 50 times, set on fire, jumping off buildings, and cool stuff like that. That's also stressful and kind of puts a wear and tear on your body. I think the stunt I always go back to as being my favorite was when it was a limousine stunt, so a car stunt, went off of a bridge. And it was really cool because there was multiple angles doing it, because obviously if you got a limousine and a bridge, you're only really doing that once. So you have to have cameras of all different angles. And it was just a huge group effort to just get this one shot. And if you know anything about Hollywood, you're in there for hours and hours getting multiple shots. So we only had one take. So it was really stressful to get that in. But then doing the underwater work and doing back in the studio, we were in tanks, and learning how to hold your breath, learning how to function underwater and survive while still acting out the scene and still doing what needs to be done. That one stands out, but I think just stunts day in and day out really were my butter to my career, is just kind of doing stunts day in, day out and staying healthy. A lot of people think we're adrenaline junkies with stunts, and I think we're trying not to get hurt, because obviously if we get hurt, we don't have a paycheck tomorrow. So we're trying not to get hurt and trying to stay healthy. So adrenaline's not really what you want to focus on. You want to focus on using your smarts. If something goes wrong, how to recover, how to stay in the scene, how to stay in character, and how to survive.
Yeah, indeed. Your health is really part of your bread and butter, so to speak. But let's talk about the film industry, because Preston, film industry or working within the film industry could mean a number of things to some people. For some, it's just a passion, and for some, it's just a source of income. But personally, for you, what does being in the film industry mean?
So for me, film industry was how I made a living. I was very fortunate to get in at an early age and work on huge productions. I didn't do a lot of independent stuff. It was always on big productions, and one thing led to another. So it was a means of making a living. So like I said, if you want to, you don't want to go into a stunt or anything like that with adrenaline on top of your mind, because if you mess up your leg, you don't get to work tomorrow. And there's a younger person waiting, and the older I got in my career, there's always a younger person, a cheaper ways that they can come into the studio and work for. So you have to stay relevant. You got to stay healthy, but film to me is really a passion. It is a passion. So obviously I'm making a living, but it's a passion to me because I love being able to leave that stamp, like my heart, like I put all this into it, and I love to leave that stamp on that film, because that's everything I had in that moment. And with stunts especially, I put all my body, all my effort, and I leave my life on the line, man. I want that film to be perfect. And that's what I'm there for. And I'm leaving everything out. If I get hurt, I get hurt, but I am not holding back. So film industry to me is expressing myself creatively, but also leaving my effort, my hard work, and my heart as a stamp on that film.
And of course, while it's really your passion, and like what you've alluded to earlier, you transition from working within the film industry to being a sports psychologist. So what was the transition like? What was it smooth, or do you have to kind of not navigate it more effectively, because academia is pretty much different from the sector that you used to work for?
So I think with psychology, and obviously going all the way to psychologist and doctorate, a lot of school. And I started school when I was younger and kind of got out of it because I wanted to focus on film, and that was really, and I kind of ran its course. Pretty much, my body was like, "Hey, you're getting old. You need to move on, because you can't do this forever," as any professional athlete would. I mean, your body gets pretty beat up, especially pushing 40. So, you got to be in school a long time. So I went back to school, and luckily, online learning was there, and that was real beneficial. So while everyone else was relaxing, going to parties, and doing all the Hollywood life, I was, pounding away, doing online learning and bachelor's, and got my master's, and then PhD, which actually is PsyD, but a lot of people don't know what a PsyD is, so I say PhD. But I think the transition for me, especially with sports psychology, is working with athletes and professional athletes, and not only the injuries they go through, but the mindset. And whatever sport they're playing, they've been playing their entire lives, and they've sacrificed everything to succeed in that sport. And training, eating, family life, everything, and they've sacrificed it. And when that's gone, and I kind of went through this with stunts too. When that's gone, what the heck do we do? That was really our life's passion. So where do we go from that? And I think I can personally bring to the table that a professional athlete can really flourish later in life. But how do I relate to a professional athlete's mindset? And that's where my career comes in, and that's where I think I can add something special. And that's really what I'm interested in, and my second career moving forward.
Well, when you talk about your experience from transitioning from being a stuntman to being a PhD student, somehow I could relate to that, Preston, because it also took me about nearly 10 years before I decided to start my own PhD. So I
Yeah.
know it's not really an easy decision to make. But I just want to pick on what you said earlier, because you said you kind of you think you have something to contribute when you're doing a PhD or doing a doctorate degree. So how do you think your experiences with injuries as a stuntman help you as a sports psychologist? Because obviously these are real life examples of sports, if you will.
So I think obviously overcoming injuries. I've had just a crazy number of injuries, concussions, everything, and overcoming that and being able to move forward and work while you're doing it, and continuing to fight through injuries. So going through a career with that, and I think now what's really cool, and you've seen it probably 5 years ago, and you see a lot more now, is athletes coming out, especially male athletes coming out and talking about mental illness. And that was not around 10 plus years ago. So that is fantastic to see. And I think with the illness that we've had the last couple of years as a nation and a world, I think online counseling and online medication and seeing a doctor and having that access is just phenomenal. So, but with injuries, I think like a big thing with is my thing always with recovering is overcompensation. So I've ruptured my Achilles. I'm choosing this as an example. So throughout that year of rehab, I'm putting a lot of pressure and weight and focus on the other side that's not injured. And that's overcompensation. And I'm going to eventually hurt something on that other side. And I think mentally we just overcompensate and we don't think about it and we just do it subconsciously. So I think it's hard to, like, if a football player tears an ACL, he's going to put weight on the other leg. That other leg's going to go. So naturally, when we fall, we are going to put the weight on the injured or the non-injured leg because our brain says, hey, this is a safer option. So we need to, kind of cognitively get into that mindset of, not going through the cycle of this hurts and then I injured this and then I injured that. And it's just a long train of injuries. And my biggest thing is pain management. I mean, at my age, when I wake up, I am like, what hurts today? And whatever hurts today is what I'm treating. My back's really killing me today. I'm going to focus on that. I might have a lot of other injuries that hurt, but we're focusing on that. We take it day by day, and whatever hurts, you treat it. But I think with stunts is if I have a bad injury, I have to continue to work. So you have to figure out a way how you can work throughout that day while in pain or you're injured. How do you for that day get through work and do it successfully and great? So that mindset of I'm injured, but I got to continue going and I got to be great is a professional athlete's mindset. So that's where I would come in at.
Absolutely. Now, Preston, let's talk about pain management because you mentioned about that, and I would imagine throughout your career as a stuntman, you've kind of experienced or encountered some pain management and training tips. Would you mind sharing some of those?
Yeah, pain management. I never took painkillers other than Tylenol. Never got into that. Never wanted to get into anything. I tried to just gut it out. But like I'm always big about take it one day at a time and accomplish that thing for that day, and then the next day you're going to worry about the next day. But don't set these huge goals, especially with pain management or injury. Get through the day, and if you're working while through that day, you're doing stunts, you're a professional athlete, you get through that day and manage that pain for that day and move forward. But I think with anything with pain management is all mental. I mean, you have to fight through it because that's you're a professional athlete and you're there to do a job. You're there to be great at whatever you do. So I think it's just a mindset.
And obviously, with all this knowledge and experience that you're sharing with us, being a former professional athlete, it helps you with treating and understanding professional athletes, would you say?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you got someone who's in the NFL and they retire at 30, they weren't just in the NFL for 5, 10 years. They were playing football since they were a little kid, and that's been their sole purpose. And they've been great at it at every stage of life. And they sacrificed at every stage of life to get to there. All of a sudden, football's gone. Now they're kind of like, what do I do? I spent my whole life in this passion, and it's gone. I'm retired, I put family and friends and everything aside to focus on this. It's kind of like, what do I do in life now? So I went through that. So I think I could definitely relate to that.
And of course, owing to your experience, Preston, you could have chosen a number of careers. You could have, set up your own stuntman training center, if you will.
Sure.
But why did you choose a career in psychology?
Because I know how hard it is to overcome injuries. I know how hard it is to have that mental mindset. And I know, especially with so many athletes coming out talking about mental illness, especially men coming out and talking about it, which is fantastic. I think I can really contribute. And I think I can contribute to professional athletes or the everyday athlete or the everyday male who just wants to, work through whatever they're going through mentally and physically and succeed through that day and that week, month, year, and later on in life. I think I can contribute, but I think I can bring a lot to the table. And I just really want to help others is what it comes down to.
Yeah. Now let's pivot our conversation to academia because you're a doctoral student. So what's the subject of your dissertation?
So right now I'm defending my dissertation. So at the very tail end of getting my doctorate. But
Good luck.
mine is gender equality in sports.
Mhm.
So very interesting topic. And honestly, there's just not a lot to pull from. there's not a lot to pull from for. I mean, you hear about soccer, which is a big focus of mine as the women's national team, and you got the WNBA. But outside of that, just statistically and research and just focusing on female sports and how it's different from male sports, there's not a lot of research. So you're finding all this new research based on your past research, so based on literature review, and so I think it's so fascinating, and it really gives me a new point of view of what women go through as athletes and how it is different for women and men in professional sports. So I love it.
So what's the major finding of your research? And can you feel that because of this dissertation, you kind of have a new understanding of gender equality?
So I think my subject pool is the women's national soccer team and what they went through, and winning the World Cup, and the lawsuits that they went through with the soccer league, and just which brought so much attention, and they kind of fed off of the Me Too movement, and they kind of just with their just, hey, this women athletes have a voice, and we see it, Serena Williams, for example, but they have a voice. So now you can come on and go on Twitter, and you can put a positive image to a woman athlete. And that wasn't there before. And you got someone who's a celebrity now, who's maybe a soccer player, who can put that positive image out there. And now all of a sudden, young girls see that, or even males, older see that, and they say, hey, maybe these are athletes that can compete and that are really good and can compete at I'm not going to say a male level, because obviously, women and men are different. But I'm talking about just a professional athlete, and they can be a professional athlete just like a man can. And I think we're coming around to that, where we're realizing, female sports are so there's such a talent pool there, and I think when you're talking about the two genders, and I think there's so much more exposure of positivity coming out, and social media has really helped with that, and social injustice has helped with that, and I think we're moving in a really positive direction when it comes to gender equality in sports.
And I'd just like to ask a quite political question, and I think you're kind of expecting this. So what's your opinion of transgender men who are joining female sports?
So
Transgender women, rather.
Yeah, a lot of people ask me that, especially with my dissertation. Well, what are you answering on that? Or that's such a huge subject. In a dissertation, you're trying to be so narrow focused, and I'm just focused on gender equality, so male and female. And I'm not only focused on that, I'm really niching it to the soccer league, and the World Cup, Women's World Cup. So you really narrow. So I haven't researched enough to get out there with that broad subject of gender or trans women, trans men, and how they go into sports. I will say, without researching it a ton myself, but just off the top of my head, there's obviously physical differences with a male who's born with and a female who's born with. And when you're mixing those, whether male or female, or how they do transition, there's going to be a natural difference. And that needs to be taken into account, regardless of what they're transitioning into. Biologically, men and women are different in their capabilities. And depending on the sport, if you're talking about strong men, obviously men are going to be, biologically just stronger in general. So it depends on the sport, depends on so many aspects that I haven't researched, so I'm not knowledgeable about. But I would say biologically they are different, and that needs to be realized from a basis of, depending on what you're looking at, that needs to be at least acknowledged, and we need to find a fair ground.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think doing research about this contentious topic would be a good place to start, because obviously when we're doing research, we could provide evidence that would inform policy making. But we'll leave it there. But I was just wondering, Preston, because you have lots of experience being a stuntman, so obviously you've come across a number of misconceptions. So if you could identify some of the misconceptions about being a stuntman and kind of address those misconceptions.
Biggest one is we're adrenaline junkies. We're out there to get the thrill. We're out there to jump off buildings, and we're the macho alpha males, and we're trying not to get hurt. We're trying not to get hurt, and not only that, we're trying to, when we do get hurt, inevitably, or when we go through a hard stunt and like you're getting hit by a car and you go rolling off a car and you hit the ground and you're like, oh, your body's hurting, but you suck it up and you go through the scene. So you're going through stunts, and then you're going through, keeping up the scene. And if you do get injured, you have to continue on with it. But I think the huge mental, or the huge misconception that I hear is we're adrenaline junkies. And when you're doing a stunt, you have to be so mathematical. You have to be so intelligent going into it and knowing exactly when to move, how to recover. And it's so intellectually, intellectually strong that you have to be boom, you have to be on that second, on that millisecond of getting hit by a car. You have to be ready to roll. And adrenaline is something you don't want, because you want to be smart when you do it so you don't get hurt. It's a huge misconception. Also, when I go to Comic Cons, I do cameo, which is, you get shout outs from celebrities and stuff like that. The biggest thing I get is someone wants me to do a flip, someone wants me to do a stunt, and it's like, when am I going to get hit by a car right now? So people have a misconception, definitely, with adrenaline junkies, and we're just kind of crazy people. We're not.
Yes, it's actually, not just your physical strength, but like what you've said, you have to calculate some stunts in order for you not to injure yourself. So there's a lot of thinking involved in executing your stunt. But what would you say are the highlights of your career so far, whether as a sports psychologist right now or as a stuntman? What's the highlight, Preston?
I think as a stuntman, I was able to bounce around sets, and I was able to work in a studio and in an area that just constantly had work in that studio. So I was able to do so much, and over 100 projects in 20 years is incredible. The longevity is incredible, and the amount of projects I was able to do is phenomenal. And I could go from one set to another, and once you do a stunt, you know how to do that stunt, and you can just kind of travel. And you can kind of just do that in different areas. So my huge accomplishment in stunts was longevity. I mean, I was able to do it so long, and my body definitely pays for that every day. But it pays for that because I'm proud of what I did, and I'm proud of the history. I'm proud of the accomplishments, all the cool projects, but meeting people. Meeting big celebrities like Ben Stiller, who was like one of the nicest people I've ever met, and I worked on 2 projects with him. Just meeting tons of, and then I did different characters. I did a show called Eastbound and Down about a redneck with a mullet playing baseball, and then I did One Tree Hill, Lucas Scott, who's about a teenage heartthrob. So, and I did them around the same time. So being able to be versatile in my career has been incredible. And I've been able to be a therapist at a master's level for a few years now, and then now going into a doctorate. So I think I just want to help people, and I want to that's what I want to focus on. So I want to bring whatever knowledge I can to them to further their life and to have a better life. So just help people.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Preston, we're already approaching the end of this interview, but I just want to get to know you more a bit. So I have some quick fire questions for you. So the first one is, what were you afraid of as a child?
What was I afraid of?
As a child?
Well, as a child and today, I'm scared to death of snakes. I mean, snakes freak me out. But I've never been scared of heights. I've never been scared of a lot of normal stuff. I'll do pretty much anything crazy as long as I have a good safety support team. I think what's great about working in big budgets is you have the best support team, you have the best medics on set, you have the best situation with stunts. So I was nenever really scared to do anything.
That's why you became a stuntman. And what is your favorite word in another language?
I'm gonna say I don't know. I'm not that versed in other languages, so I'm gonna be a boring answer there and say I don't know.
And if you were a sports psychologist or a stuntman, if you haven't done that, what would you have pursued in life?
I think as I look past in my past experiences and moving forward, I wouldn't change anything. So this is the only way I know, and this is the only way. And going through those 20 years has led me to another career that's connected. And I still can have my creativity. I can still live through stunts and my film career and bring it over and transition to another one. So I wouldn't change anything, and this is what I'd be doing.
Good. And Preston, finally, the floor is all yours. Tell us what else is in the pipeline. Do you have any upcoming projects? obviously aside from your dissertation? And if people wanted to reach out to you, what platforms can they get in touch with you at?
So I am social media wise. I'm just on Instagram.
Mm.
Great following, great engagement on there. I love to talk to people. It's fitness based, but we talk about stunts and just a great community on there. So definitely Instagram stuntbeast dot yes stunt dot beast stunt dot beast. And then Cameo, I'm on there, which is a website which celebrities reach out and do shout outs. So which is great. It's fun and I love doing that, especially since I'm not doing Comic Cons anymore. That allows me to reach out to fans and bring a lot of positive energy, give positive messages. But the one project I have just done is it's called 5 Things I Wish I Knew as a Stuntman, which is out on YouTube. Just a quick 5-minute video, but man, it's a lot of fun information. We got to shoot it on an awesome set. And really proud of that project. But if you want all of that information, go to my Instagram, stunt.beast, or Google Preston Corbell, and it all pops up there. So,
And obviously, all of those things for anyone who's watching, that will be on the description note. Well, Preston Corbell, sports psychologist and former stuntman, it's great to have you here on the DRH show. And thanks for joining me. And I look forward to hearing more about your work.
thank you so much, and thank you for the audience or your audience for listening to me.
Thank you.